Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications.
The House Committee on the Judiciary held a hearing today on hate crimes and the rise of white nationalism. Not a hearing likely to have happened if the Republicans had held the House. Voting matters, period. One of the first witnesses was my friend, powerful advocate, Eva Paterson, who's the president of the Equal Justice Society in Oakland, California. She summed up the problem in just a few powerful minutes.
Some of the things I'm going to share with you are difficult to hear, but they are facts. In August 1619, 400 years ago, 20 enslaved Africans landed at Jamestown. In order to sell, rape, and beat these Africans, white Americans, and I know none of you own slaves, had to see us as less than human. Thomas Jefferson said the following about me and my ancestors. They have no tenderness and love, they are intellectually inferior, they are physically unattractive. Thus began a narrative, says law professor Shauna Marshall, that black people were only good for physical labor, we were inhuman and violent. This was a narrative necessary in order to justify slavery. White supremacy has been a feature of the mistreatment of Native Americans for years, and it was applied to Africans once we arrived here. From the beginning of our country's inception through the Constitution, the Founding Fathers knowingly and consciously embraced slavery and white supremacy. Politics, including the three branches of government, have played and continue to play a role in the perpetuation of white supremacy and the continued mistreatment of black people, either through action or inaction. In 1857, the Supreme Court, in the Dred Scott decision, reinforced white supremacy by saying black people have no rights, that white people need respect. Ultimately, slavery ended, the Reconstruction era happened, black men could vote, and then politics reared its ugly head once again. Federal troops were withdrawn from the South in order to place Rutherford B. Hayes in the presidency, and the reign of terror in the South began. Once again, I'm a Southerner. The Ku Klux Klan came about. They were white supremacists. They lynched people. They made sure that black people could not vote. For years, the NAACP asked Congress to act on anti-lynching laws. Congress refused to act. Fast forward to 1964, our fellow Texan got the Civil Rights Act passed, but when it passed, he said, we have lost the South for a generation, he said, of Democrats. 6 years later, the Southern strategy was devised to encourage white people to abandon the Democratic Party and vote for the GOP. It was a shrewd and effective political strategy, but it drove yet another wedge between black and white people. Fast forward to 2008. America elects a black president. Unfortunately, this proves very unsettling to many people who have felt superior to black people when there's a black president and a black family in the White House. In 2015, Donald Trump began his campaign by calling Mexicans rapists. He called for a Muslim ban. When white supremacists marched in Charlottesville chanting, "Jews will not replace us," and "blood and soil," which is straight from the Nazi playbook, Mr. Trump said there are good people on both sides. He recently called asylum seekers animals. Dylan Roof goes into a place of worship and murders black souls. Jews are slaughtered in Pittsburgh. Muslims are slaughtered in New Zealand. We need the Congress to stand up and act. Ranking Member Collins, I was so delighted to hear your strong statement against white supremacy and that the Republicans took a lead in denouncing it. But we need you to do more. Out there where I live in California, we're not so sure where the Congress stands on white supremacy. So we're delighted that you're speaking up. I'd also like to address Chief Justice Roberts, who dismantled the Voting Rights Act in Shelby versus Holder. He said racism had been eradicated. That simply is not true. I hope he will talk to Justice Judge Bernice Donnell from the Sixth Circuit, who writes extensively on racism. We hope that a majority of you will want to give the country a signal that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, Eva. That's my homegirl. That was powerful. Check this out. The exchange between Committee Chair Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York and Kristen Clarke, who leads the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, detailing how the Trump administration downplays hate crime.
We need the government to step up and do more. We also need the FBI to do a better job incentivizing local law enforcement agencies to turn over the data so we can capture the hot spots where hate crimes are happening around the country. And then finally, we need to see this Justice Department using its bully pulpit more often to condemn hate when it happens. As a civil rights organization, we're deeply disturbed by the Justice Department and this Attorney General and prior AGs prior to him. We're disturbed by their deafening silence in the fake of hate incidents that we've seen across the country. We're going to continue to bring pressure to bear to ensure that they do more and encourage Congress to use its oversight authority here as well. The final thing that I will note is that we're deeply concerned about the FBI's Black Identity Extremist designation. This is mere distraction from the very real threat of white supremacy that we face today.
Also testifying was Candace Owens of the Trump PAC, Turning Point USA. That woman had the nerve to bring her grandfather with her. Her basic line was that the rise of white nationalism was fake news, just a campaign tactic to spin up African Americans at election time. Ted Lieu, Democratic Congressman of California, asked her why she was there. Let's look.
In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist. But if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Lieu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Great.
Two more things about the hearing. It was streamed live on YouTube, and the comment section was so filled with hateful speech, white nationalist speech, that YouTube had to shut it down. And we're having a hearing about whether or not there's any white nationalism. All right. And take a look at Kristen Clarke watching Candace Owens testify. Talk about shade. Joining me on the panel today, Malik Abdul, Vice President of the Black Conservative Federation, and Cleo Monago, social political analyst and activist. So, guys, what do you think? Especially, Malik, I'm going to ask you first. I just have to, about your friend Candace Owens. I don't know if she's your friend or not, but y'all do share some predilections.
No, I've never met Candace. You know, there are things that you just really shouldn't get into, and I know that she did try to clean up those comments about Hitler, you know, whether it's Candace or anyone on the left. You know, I don't think that we should be using Hitler references any more than we should be using slave and plantation references. But one point that Candace did make is because the hearing was also about hate speech. And one of the you know, she did drive in on that point about hate speech, and we do get a lot of that from the left. You know, just me, I'm pretty sure in the comment section here on this show, very soon, I'm going to get some of that same thing because I get it all the time here. So she did have a point about hate speech. You know, conservatives generally aren't protected under that umbrella of hate speech. And so you don't get people to respond in ways that you do on the left. So she did have a point there. But, you know, the Hitler references and things like that, I just don't think that those type of things should be part of the discussions that we're having.
Cleo, Ms. Owens, when she testified, said that there was no such thing as a Southern strategy. My first question is, where did that child go to school? But you don't have to answer that one. When you hear this revisionist history coming out of people's mouths, what do you think? And how do we combat that?
Well, I wish them luck. Eva Paterson was brilliant. I've heard her speak before, and she's always brilliant. Everything she said was true. And I wish them luck trying to fight against a deaf devil who does not care about whatever they have to say, against them defending themselves, sustaining their power, and against them trying to break down any kind of opposition to them. Good luck with that. I use my energy in other ways, and it focuses on people similar to Candace Owens. I think one of the black people's biggest problems is self-hate crimes, which is different than hate crimes.
She committed a hate crime on her grandpa.
Well,
by bringing him. Why would you bring your grandfather as a prop to something like that?
Well, because people who are dealing with self-hate issues are very serious about deflecting issues of racism, et cetera, and being on the side that they're on. They're desperate. They bring grandfathers where they can bring to make their case. But self-hate crimes is a consequence of black people being too focused on assimilating and adapting to oppression instead of being more relentlessly focused on dealing with the side effects of oppression on the black psyche. People like Candace Owens are the result of neglect in terms of getting her to understand the issue of racism and its impact on black people. The murder of Mr. Hustle in LA was a self-hate crime.
Yes, it was.
And there has not been enough talk about self-hate crimes, which I think are more of an immediate problem than the systemic problem of white supremacy, which is not going anywhere. The best we can do is get a closet white supremacist to act liberal and act caring in public. Then they go into the voting booths and do what they really want to do, because people want power. And they have power, and any type of threat to that, people are going to do all that they can, including acting like they like you, so they can go do what they really want to do to get you to relax.
So, Malik, what do you think the significance of these hearings were? As I mentioned, if Republicans had maintained power, we would not have had these hearings. Right. So what do you think the significance is?
I'm really not sure, and believe it or not, I watched the entire hearing. I was trying to navigate between that and the bar hearing.
I thought you'd been a bar.
Well, somebody did tweet, "Don't ever trust a man with a bow tie." So,
but I'm really not, and I listened to it, and I'm really not sure. They did provide a space to talk about these things, but as far as the Democrats provided a space to talk about these things, but I don't know how far that actually got us in the and when I say that, when I'm listening to them, it's of course they went to talk about Trump. So they talked about the fact that, well, it starts at the top, Trump doing things to encourage it and things like that. I think that hate speech in and of itself is apolitical. It's not Democrat, it's not
that hate speech is apolitical?
Right, a hate speech itself. It doesn't have a Democrat or Republican or anything like that.
Hate speech has a very different impact. If I call somebody a honky, I mean, whatever. If someone calls me the N-word, that is invoking lynching, that's invoking all of that. Right. So it's a different thing.
But somebody like me,
it's a false equivalency.
Right, but I don't think so, and I go back to my point that I was making about Candace. Okay, well, maybe not the H word or the N word, but I'm often, as a Republican, I'm often called these things, whether it's Uncle Tom, Coon, anything that you...
Okay, does it hurt you?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so...
No, but because it doesn't hurt me, because I have, I'm from Mississippi. I have Teflon skin, so, these things don't hurt me because I approach it knowing that you don't know me. You don't know me to make those type of assumptions, but the assumptions they do make. So if we're talking about hate speech, I mean, there are really hateful things that are often said about conservatives that we just don't talk about.
I'm not a Republican and ain't getting ready to join, but I'm not a Democrat either. But I agree with parts of what he's saying, and even milliseconds of what Candace Owens said in terms of her being chased away by some black folks at a restaurant or something like that.
Yeah.
I do think that people...
Well, civility is gone. That's the issue. Civility is,
exactly.
I mean, whether
people think that that cruelness and viciousness and calling people names. I mean, I've seen the amount of names people call you, and I tried to get a scale that could weigh them, but I can't find one that powerful. But anyway, my point is that I think that we need to take, that's a whole other conversation, but we need to take a look at this co-abuse phenomena in this culture where both people are aiming to claim that they want to change society for the better, but there's a lot of viciousness going on here that's very dehumanizing on both sides. So that's true.
Well, we'll give you that, but I do not think, I think it's a false equivalency. I give you your point, but I do think it's a false equivalency.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders. Enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. The winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply has been extended to April 15, 2019. Go to FGB.Life for more information and to apply. Ford goes further in our community.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.